There we go.
Thank you. So welcome to the webinar about body image and betrayal trauma. So a little bit about me. I'm a sex addiction therapist, a betrayal trauma therapist, and an inner child specialist. I specialize in sex addiction, betrayal trauma, inner child healing, enmeshment, and narcissistic abuse. I have an online business, and you can find me at asafeplacetoshare.com. I also facilitate a prodependence drop-in group every other Wednesdays for female partners of sex addicts through Seeking Integrity. So today, the topic of body image and betrayal trauma has come up over and over again with my betrayed partners that I work with, but also in the prodependence drop-in group. And I thought it would be a great topic to talk about in a webinar because I realize that a lot of women are suffering from body image issues due to betrayal trauma. So we're going to start off with just a little bit of information. Danielle's going to share her story. And then I'm going to share something called the 5 C's with everyone, and then we'll do question and answers. So here's a question for you to ponder. How deep does your internal verbal assault go? What do you say to yourself? So maybe some of these sound familiar to you. I look like a baby. I'm disgusting. I see every imperfection of my body. I'm too skinny. I'm too fat. I'm too old. I can't satisfy him. How could I ever attract him? How can I entice him? I need to hit the gym. I'm not enough. What do these women have that I don't have? I need a tattoo and piercing. I got a tummy tuck, breast implants, and it was still not enough. One woman, one body will never be enough for him. These were shared with me in our prodependence group. And these came from the women who have been betrayed. So how do you get to a place of body acceptance? Every woman deserves to know that their bodies are good the way they are today. So I decided to have Danielle Pastor Valle join me today as she has experienced firsthand being a betrayed partner. How did I meet Danielle? Well, fun fact about me, when I'm not working, I love to look at fashion. And I came across Danielle's Instagram and I was looking at it over and over again. And then one day, out of the blue, I received a direct message from her. And this is what it said. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for sharing your page. I love your page. I was married for 9 years to someone who had a porn addiction, and it was really hard to deal with. I'm now in a relationship with someone who doesn't struggle with that, but I still have trust issues, and I'm suspicious of being lied to and cheated on. So I thought, maybe I'd like to do a webinar with her. So a little bit about Danielle. She's originally from the charming Cajun lands of South Louisiana, which will explain her accent. She is a multi-passionate entrepreneur with a fervent dedication to coaching women on their journey to living their healthiest, most vibrant, and beautiful lives. Danielle prioritizes accountability, integrity, and commitment in all of her endeavors. She is a model. She has a podcast called Unfiltered with Danielle. She has a marketing social media business. She does photography, videos, and is a life coach. So I'll pass the floor over to you, Danielle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Debbie. I am just so honored to be a part of this webinar. And really, it meant a lot to me when you asked me to be a part of this because like you shared, I know from that message that I sent you, I know what it's like to feel so alone in this struggle and to feel isolated and just wanting answers, wanting someone to give you hope. And that's kind of why I reached out to you, because I loved what you were talking about, informing people about betrayal trauma and how to heal from that. And so that really resonated with me. And so, again, thank you so much. So a little bit, thank you for sharing. I guess I was gonna share, like, if y'all hear the accent, that's where I'm from, Louisiana. So I grew up in Louisiana, and from, like many of you, maybe you have also experienced from such a young age, just trauma and fear. And so that's kind of like where I wanted to start was, I don't want to just start with getting married young and being with someone that had a porn addiction. I want to start from the very beginning, because I think that a lot of times when we find ourselves in these situations, that there's the beginning to it. So for me, it started with my mom and trust issues from my mom. And so from a very young age, I remember just living in so much fear and anxiety. And I just remember seeing my mom. So she had a drug addiction and mental issues. But now I would even say she had a sex addiction, because I just remember when my dad would leave for work, she would bring me and my sister with her to other men's houses. And that was so confusing for a little girl, because I was like, who are these men? Why are we here? So I just remember from the very beginning having just like, you can't trust people. You just, this trust issues just started to arise in me. And I not only did I not have a good foundation for trust, but I also felt abandoned, and I felt just unworthy, and I felt like my mom was choosing these addictions over me. And so I never really dealt with that trauma. I had a lot of anger issues. My dad didn't really know what was going on with me. Now I can see, being an adult, that it was trauma and that there was nothing wrong with me. But growing up, I just really had these deep roots from trauma of beliefs about myself. And so I get into these unhealthy relationships, and then throughout my life, it kind of keeps showing up. And then when I'm 18, I get married super young, kind of naive about life and love. And I get married to this amazing guy, but he did make me aware that he had a porn issue. He struggled with porn. And I guess like just being a little naive of what porn addiction was, and also just it was so normalized in culture, and I didn't really know the effects it could have on a relationship. And so we get married, and then a few years into our marriage, I just started to discover uh, the type of things he was viewing and what he was looking at. And I think that's when it kind of all started to spiral for me, because I didn't look anything like these women that he was looking at on the screen. They didn't look like me. And so I started to like compare myself. I started to feel, again, I already have these trust issues. I already have these feelings that I never dealt with of not being good enough. But then seeing the person that I love the most look at women in that way, and they don't look like me, it kind of like deepened it, and it became like a complex trauma where now I started to feel like I'm just not good enough. Like it just became like what's wrong with me? Like why am I not enough? Why is the way that I look, the way my body looks, the way my hair is, like why is it not enough? And so that kind of led to just feeling then I started to seek validation actually through modeling, and I don't think I was doing this consciously. I think subconsciously, because I wasn't getting validated from my partner, that I started to seek that out through social media, so through modeling, through and so I realized like I was just really wanting someone to tell me like you're enough, like the way you look is enough, the way you dress is enough, like who you are, you're enough the way you are. So all along I was searching for that. And even through modeling, it never filled that hole. It never filled that void. I do love fashion, like Debbie said. I don't think there's anything wrong with fashion, and I love it. But I was seeking it for something that it could not fulfill in me. It just wasn't enough. No matter how much people said, "Oh, Danielle, you're beautiful," or like you look great in this. It just wasn't enough. And so after like just so many times seeking so much help. I tried to reach out to pastors, I tried to reach out to different counselors, and then at one point I finally reached out to someone that was specialized in sex addiction, and I went to therapy hoping to fix my ex-husband and hoping to heal and change him. And then I just realized when I went to therapy that I had lost myself in this journey of trying to fix and heal him and focus on him and his addiction. And I had not dealt with my trauma and the feelings I had about myself and just my body image. So it kind of led me to the journey of realizing how unhealthy that dynamic had become in our relationship. And I did want to say that I tried so many things to change him. I tried manipulation, as in I would threaten to leave him if he didn't change, if he didn't stop looking at porn, and it wasn't enough. And what I really want to highlight is that you cannot change a person, you can't control a person or manipulate a person to change. And I think that I had to come to this like aha moment of a person has to really want it for themselves. And so I know that I wanted freedom. And so I just came to a place of realizing that I could no longer be in this unhealthy dynamic. And we ended up getting divorced. We decided to separate. And so after we separated, I kind of thought like, okay, well, that's it. All those problems of body image and insecurities, they're gone because I got rid of my problem. So I was a little naive in that, but so I now being married, I got remarried, and so now I've been remarried for 2 years, and I just really want to talk about how the lingering effects of that betrayal trauma actually came into my new marriage. Like Debbie said, like my husband now, he doesn't have a porn addiction, but because I didn't deal with that trauma and those feelings of insecurity, that it led in this marriage, I had just so much suspicions. I would just get triggered by what may seem like such small things, like going to the gym or going to the beach. It would trigger me, especially when I would see girls that reminded me of the type of women my ex would look at. It would trigger me, and I just like remember feeling just so hopeless and really crying out to God for help, like please help me like overcome this trauma and find healing. And so through this journey, I learned a lot of just that I can see now in hindsight that my ex's porn addiction was nothing to do with me, and it wasn't about how I looked, it wasn't about how my body looked, but that it was his own trauma. And I learned that I took it personal, and so I really feel like now I'm able to separate that from someone's addiction not defining who I am as a person and my identity and my value, and to find my true value in who God says I am. But it has been a journey, and I'm still on that journey, and I still get triggered. And I think that that's the thing I want to highlight, is that healing from betrayal trauma is a journey, and it's not about perfection, it's about making progress. And the only way to make progress is to be compassionate with yourself, because I feel like whenever you do get triggered, it then creates a lot of shame, and you start to feel guilty for maybe getting triggered, but realizing that the trauma that you experienced is real and that it does take time to heal it. And the only way to heal it is through being compassionate with yourself, and also remembering that it's not personal, that it's nothing to do with your value and worth as a person, that someone's unhealthy actions don't define who you are as a person. So that's kind of like what I really remembered and what I went through. And then I guess like what I really just want to say is that healing is possible. And I think that as you become more aware of your triggers, you're able to set healthier boundaries. And then also you're able to recognize when those triggers are coming, and the lie that you're not enough or you want to compare yourself to other women, remembering that you are enough the way you are, and that you don't have to look a certain way to be enough. Because I have many friends I think it's awesome that Debbie wanted to bring me on here, and she highlighted like, oh, this model, and like people would even tell my ex-partner, like, I don't understand why you have this addiction, like look at your wife. But that's what I want to also say is I also have friends that are so stunning and they look like models, and it has also happened to them. So it's not about how you look. It's about their trauma and them acting out on that, and just to not take that personal. And I know that's easier said than done, because when I was in it, it was hard for me to differentiate it and not take it personal. But now looking back, that's something that I would say to any woman who feels just stuck and is hurting and doesn't feel like there's any hope, to know that there's nothing wrong with you and that you're enough the way you are, and that there is hope and healing, and everyone's journey to that is different. And I just hope me sharing my story and how I'm finding healing inspires you as well. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Danielle, for sharing that. Scott, are you there? Yeah,
I'm here. I wanted to focus on you and Danielle.
That's great. No, thank you. Scott, do you have a couple of pictures that you could share from Danielle's Instagram by any chance?
I do.
Okay.
So
So these are some of the pictures that sort of drew me to her site. Great.
You want me to stop share or want to go back through those?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. That's
So
great.
just a second. You know, if I was a woman, I would want this dress. I'm just saying.
Yes.
So.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Very elegant. Yeah. So, you know, for those of you who are interested in seeing more of her profile, she's on Instagram at Danielle Pastor Valle. So I just want to share with you before we go to the questions and answers, something called the 5 C's. And Danielle had talked about compassion. So these 5 C's actually come from somebody by the name of Jen Howie. And Jen is a coach and works with women on betrayal trauma. And you can find her at healingwiththehowies.com. So that's healingwiththehowies, HOWIES.com. So she talks about the 5 C's: conscious, curious, challenge, compassion, and committed. So I'd like to share these with you. The first one being committed. You know, when put into practice day after day, it will start to change your thinking. So the first one, the first one is conscious, pardon me. You can fix what you can't fix what you are not aware of. So it's important to be aware of your critical spirit towards your body. What is the narrative that you are telling yourself? The second one is to be curious. Be curious as to why you feel the way you do. If you are being critical of yourself, you may want to ask yourself, of what benefit is this bringing to you? Example, it could give you a false understanding of why things are happening. But this narrative makes sense so that you are going to buy into it. Example, this is why he left. It is a perceived benefit. The third one is challenge. Challenge your narrative and ask yourself, is this really helping me? Is criticizing what you ate or how you look really helping you in the moment? Challenge your thinking and the words that you keep replaying in your mind, and how beneficial is that? The fourth one is compassion. Compassion is a value that we can extend to others, but more importantly to ourselves, especially during the journey of healing from betrayal. And so do you find that you give more compassion to others than to yourself, and you speak kinder to others than to yourself? And the last one is committed. Being committed to cultivate resilience, and embrace your body's uniqueness, adopting methodologies. So what are these methodologies? Well, treat yourself like you would treat a friend. Often the things we say to ourselves, we would never say to a friend. Identify the thoughts about your body and then challenge them. Are these thoughts based on reality or based on the distorted thoughts about yourself? Limit your comparisons in person and on social media. So are you comparing yourself to other women? And I know, Danielle, you brought that up, that you were doing that a lot. Remembering that often on social media, people are edited. Focus on what your body can do, its strength, functionality. If you have given birth, the amazing ability to create, birth, and feed a human being. Positive affirmations, it helps to counteract that negative self-talk. Repeat statements that boost your body positivity. Example, this is a body that loves going out in nature. This is a body that laughs with friends. This is a body that has birthed children. Say these positive affirmations every day, slow and steady. You no longer have to feel disempowered. You no longer have to feel small, invisible, or lesser than. So let's go to the question, Scott.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. I love this first one. Interestingly, even the shares of Danielle's images are triggering me here. Also, Scott's reactions are triggering. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to, but I get it. What are ways that even in these safe settings, I can work on calming my triggers? This is a beautiful, smart woman, and in no way should she feel from other women's triggers. And I want to remain a woman who empowers and supports other women, no matter how they present themselves to others.
Is that a question for me?
I think that's a question for both of you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely get it because I go to the gym a lot with my husband and I see beautiful women there, and maybe they're not dressed in what I think they should be dressed in, but I've had to realize like you can't control other people and I have to not be judgmental of people. And so I just like, for me, I personally ask God for strength to love them, to see them through his eyes, to just to also though like know like certain boundaries. Like for example, when we were at the gym one time and there was an incident, I removed myself from that room. So I think it's okay to have certain boundaries. But I guess going back to what you're saying, like in a safe environment like this, I think just recognizing the lie that you're believing and replacing it with like the truth. Like if you're feeling just like inadequate or not enough, just replacing it with like, you know, like the truth is that you are enough and that your value isn't based on how you look or how your body looks. And I know that's easier said than done, but the thing is like over time as we age, like our body's going to change. It's not always going to be the same. And so we can't base our identity or our whole worth on something that is subject to change. Because then we won't be, we'll be all over the place, you know, we won't be stable. And so that's just like been my personal experience. Maybe Debbie has more ways to calm her nervous system.
Well, you know, I shared these 5 C's because this kind of journey is not going to happen overnight. And so to be able to work on it in the moment, but also when you're not triggered or when you're not having the negative verbiage going on in your, you know, in your brain, that maybe you just can go through these 5 C's and talk to yourself. And in time, like Danielle says, you know, change happens. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
The next question here is, can you post the 5 C's in the chat? I don't know if you have time to do that right now, but if you could email them to me after the webinar, Debbie, I will post them with this video on our YouTube channel and on our website so that everybody can have those
Okay,
for sure.
that would be great. Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay. You talked about how external validation or other people telling you are beautiful didn't help you to believe that. I completely understand that. How did you work to internalize your own view of yourself as beautiful, which you totally are, by the way? That's not me, that's in the question. Thank you for being here and sharing so openly.
Yeah, so it's interesting because like even so, like I said, people on social media were telling me that, but even like my ex-husband would tell me that. Like he would tell me like that I'm beautiful even without makeup. Like he was a good guy. Like he would tell me these loving things, but because of his addiction, I didn't want to believe it. And I think it does go back to like just my mom and the trauma that I experienced there of feeling like, you know, she chose drugs and other men over me. Because like I said, I was separated from my mom when I was 2, and my dad raised us, me and my sister. But I think it goes to, so what really helped me to focus more on believing that is like, okay, I'm having all these people tell me this, so obviously something is going on in my mind and in my body, like that's not lining up. Like I don't think all these people would be lying to me. So I kind of just like got within myself with God, and I just asked and I just prayed like, please help me to believe this, and also to know like I think the biggest thing that helped me, I would say, is not taking what people did to me personal. So I took like my mom's addiction, my ex's addiction personal, and thought they were doing it because I wasn't enough. So once I like separated like my value from their actions, I think that's when I started to really believe that I was beautiful and enough from from just making the distinction of what they did had nothing to do with my value. And so I think like that was the biggest key for me, is they didn't do that to me because something was wrong with me or that I wasn't beautiful enough or enough, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Thank you.
Debbie, could you add a little bit about the difference between self-esteem and externally derived esteem? I think that might help clarify for some of the women here and men.
So, like explain a little bit more about what you're asking me to do, Scott. Sorry.
Well, to me, self-esteem comes from the inside, but I was always searching for self-esteem, and I'm an addict here, from external sources. If somebody said I was okay, then I was okay. True self-esteem is I know I'm okay on the inside.
Yeah.
So maybe you two could
Mhm.
address a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think I'm just going to piggyback off of what Danielle said, is that Danielle and I spoke a little bit about her mom, and so what's happened, I'll use you as an example, Danielle, is that, here she is, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and her mom is supposed to be her primary caregiver and love her. And her mom is picking drugs and men over her. So, and then you get married to this man and he picks porn over you. So somehow, you gave yourself the message and the narrative, and then you bought into that message and that narrative that addiction and other people must be more important than me because I am not enough. And not being enough could be not looking good enough, not being intelligent enough, it could be not being young enough, all the things I read earlier. And like you said, Scott, internally, you have to believe that you are enough, that the world cannot come in and say that I adore you, and that you have this, affirmation from everyone around you. It's an impossibility to happen. And so, but to get to that place is a journey. It's a difficult journey as a partner, but also hearing what you're saying, Scott, it's also a difficult journey as an addict. And I know a lot of the addicts that I work with, they love to be adored. by others, because it gives them that affirmation that they never had, which is the trauma. So, yeah, thanks.
Okay. Next question here. Did you want to add anything, Danielle?
No, yeah, that's great. Next
Okay.
question.
No, that was right on what you said. That was, yeah, that was spot on. That's definitely like what I learned too.
Okay. This is from an addict here. I have been in recovery and abstinent for 4.5 years. My wife and I have stayed together, but I wonder what else I can do as the guy to be supportive of the harm and shame that I contributed through my betrayal. I guess what I'm asking is, what else can the betrayer do besides committing to change and trying to be as empathetic as possible? Any pointers from your side? Great question.
So what
Uh,
did your husband do, Danielle, for you now that helps you to stay?
So at first, my husband, now he didn't really understand it. He was like, "What is happening?" Like, he was very confused and like he was like, "I'm not doing anything wrong." Like, what? But you know, so what he did that really helped me is because also when a wife experiences that or a partner experiences that, we also have shame for acting out on triggers from the past trauma we experienced. So for me, I needed him to understand situations that would trigger me and to have compassion for me when I am triggered and to know that it takes time and to be patient with me. And so when my husband now, he's patient with me and he doesn't get mad at me for being triggered, or he doesn't take it personal, or he understands it's okay and he soothes me, that helps me so much, like work through that trigger and I'm able to actually overcome it quickly. And then something else I would say that he does is he affirms me. So he'll just be like, "I love you, I'm with you, you're the girl that I married, you're the girl that I chose, I don't want another girl, like you're the one that I chose to be with and I have eyes for you." So that just affirmation of like, I'm just reminding me like he's with me, you know. Yes, he may make mistakes or whatever, but like just like, you know, no one's perfect, but again, like just reminding me like, hey, like I'm with you, I chose to be with you, I could be with someone else, but I'm with you. So I think just affirming me just really helps me, and then just being compassionate when I am triggered.
Mhm. And I'm going to add to that. And thanks for asking this question, Toby, because this is a great question. I'm going to add to that, that as the addict, being consistent with your partner and not having any surprises, always being, you know, transparent, rigorously honest at all times, so that it creates that safety, so that the partner can then feel as though they've got some stable ground to walk on, and then they can also let their guard down to move towards you as well. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Danielle.
How would you suggest someone develop those about one's character, since often our spouses develop positive attributes about our character, since our spouses also often diminish our character. So in addition to body image or body shame, we can have character shame after we've been betrayed. So how do you develop positive thoughts there?
Hmm. Is she saying like because of things that they would do after? Is that what y'all are understanding? Like about, or is the partner being critical to her?
It sounds like the betrayer has been critical of the betrayed partner's character as well as physical attributes.
Interesting. I would say that that is something that I realized about porn addiction specifically. That it's not just about, you know, someone looking at porn, but it does actually make the person, the addict, more critical of their partner and pointing out things. And I think that that comes from their own sense of shame. Maybe that's why they do it. I don't really know, like the whole reason behind that, but I did experience that as well, and I know what that feels like. I think for me it was just going back to like, yes, like again, I think it just goes back to having compassion toward yourself and just knowing like even for me when I was in that, I actually would act out in anger and lash out at my partner, and I deeply regretted that after, because no matter what someone does to you, like two wrongs don't make a right. So I had a lot of that character like shame, I would say. And so just being compassionate toward myself and saying like, you know, I was hurt and I was acting out from hurt. So just having that compassion toward myself. And I think again, finding your worth and your validation, like not in a partner, would be important, because I think like even me, I had the thought of like, well, if I get another partner, then like I'll be free from all the insecurities and like I'll finally have like a sense of like value. But that wasn't the case, because a person can't truly value us. Again, we have to find that from within, if that makes sense.
The next one here, how do you change the negative self-talk, specifically about being overweight? I berate myself dozens of times every day.
Debbie, did you want to answer that one or you wanted me to?
Well, you can start and then I'll jump in.
Um, so I would say again, like Debbie said, compassion. I think that's like our key message today, is having compassion toward yourself. But I think just recognizing those thought patterns about yourself whenever they come into your mind, and instead of spiraling and just meditating on those negative thoughts, to then shift your focus and focus on the things you love about yourself. So for the longest time, I would just focus on like maybe like a flaw of mine that I didn't like, and then I would just like focus on that so much. Instead, I changed the narrative of like focusing on something I do love about myself. So instead of focusing on something I don't like, I'll just be like, oh, I love my eyes. So like I just focus on like that, because we all have flaws and we all have things that we would want to change about ourselves. But if we focus on that so much, it's gonna make us just feel horrible and not good. So just focusing on what you love about yourself, recognizing when you are starting to spiral into that negative self-talk, and shifting your focus on what you love about yourself. And at the end of the day, reminding yourself your value is not in how much you weigh, what you look like, or what people say about you. I think like that's the key.
Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit more about that, because I think exactly that, Danielle. And so if we go back to the methodologies that I shared, it's identifying these thoughts, the narrative that you're having, and how true is it? Is this reality?
Mm-hmm.
And also, how is it benefiting you to focus on your weight, for example? And if it, because what happens is that we create a story and we buy into this narrative. So I'll use weight as an example because of the question, is that the message may be that, well, no wonder he's acting out, because look at me, I'm so overweight. So that becomes the truth of why this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is not why it's happening, because it doesn't matter who his partner is, he will act out, because it's not about his partner, it's about the addiction. So it's when you are standing there focusing on your weight, is to shift that narrative to, like what I said about positive affirmations, and what is it amazing about your body? What has your body done? What can your body do? And start focusing on these positive affirmations.
Yeah, Debbie, when you said this body loves to go outdoors, I was like, yes, I'm using that one. Um, it was great. Okay, my husband looked at all types of women, model types, regular women, older women, bigger women, etc. No type was off limits. I find that I now struggle to not sexualize other women and view them as a threat. How can I stop sexualizing and viewing other women as threats?
Good question. I would say, I also struggled with that. I noticed like that I would start to sexualize women or view them as threats, certain type of women. In your case, I understand what you're saying. It was all different types, but so I would just say that it's viewing women as not their body and their image, but viewing them as the spirit and soul that they are. And I even noticed, like, this is just an example, the gym was very triggering for me in particular. So one day I was in the gym and I was in the bathroom and this girl like just smiled at me and she was just so nice. And she was like, hi. And I was like, and it kind of just like, and like that would be a girl I would normally maybe sexualize or get triggered by. But instead, like I was just like moved by like I felt like it was like God sending me a sign to show me like that they're a person and they have a spirit and a soul and like not to just focus on what they look like. And that really actually helped me, like instead of just focusing on what people look like, focusing on like something positive about their character and like who they are as a person and maybe even smiling at them and being nice to them, because no matter how someone looks on the outside, you don't know what they're dealing with. They could be having insecurities about you, like you never know. And so just being that person that smiles, and just seeing them for who they are and not what they look like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, I always tell the men that I work with, because they want to know how can I stop objectifying people. I'm like, okay, you have to turn them into a person. You have to
Yeah.
humanize them. See beyond the surface. This is not an object. This is a human being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. And there's a big difference between noticing and objectifying. And I think that female betrayed partners can objectify other women and like addicts do because of their trauma and their pain. And it's making them human. And like you said, Danielle, everybody has a story. And so when I got that direct message from you, you can imagine it was like, oh, wow, she's a betrayed partner. Because all I looked at was, your beautiful pictures and, your type of fashion. And so like that's a great example of you just never know people's story.
Yeah.
And some women are, really struggling, but they, when we objectify them into body parts, it's not a way of showing compassion to other women out there. So, yeah.
okay. Next one here. What can we say when our addict ex-partner tells friends and family that their addiction was our fault because of our body?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the beginning of it? What can you say to them?
I mean, what can we, when somebody tells us, like if I'm your friend and I say, Danielle, your partner said you didn't have a good enough body, that's why he acted out sexually. How do you respond to that?
I mean, like I think what we've been saying, I would personally respond to it that I am not in control of anyone's actions. And if someone chooses to make an unhealthy decision to be engaged in something like porn addiction, then that has nothing to do with me, that I'm not forcing them to do it. Like I'm not controlling them, and everyone's responsible for their own choices at the end of the day. I think that's what I would tell them. Debbie, what do you think?
Well, I read this and I think, I question the sobriety of this addict. If this is what they're saying, that they're still believing that their addiction is because of their partner's body, then I think, the biggest thing here is that we're talking about an active addict. What do you think, Scott?
100%. This is 100% an active addict in denial. I would love to get this guy in one of my work groups and whip him into shape because, uh, I mean, you heard me growl as I read the question. It's like, this pisses me off.
I would
Um,
say definitely in denial. Definitely what you said, denial. I think sometimes like the addicts, they want someone to blame. Like I
Mhm.
had my ex-partner sometimes, he would tell me he didn't want to do it and that he wanted to overcome it, but then he would also say, oh, well, you're not having enough sex with me. So it's like, it was also like, yeah, I know I'm struggling with this, but I feel shame and guilt, so let me blame you. And it's never the partner's problem.
That is 100% correct. Addicts, we don't want to feel our own shame, so we'll throw it on to you. And it's a horrible, abusive thing to do.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
my issue is I cover my body. I wear bigger, baggy clothes out in public because I get triggered by men looking at me now that I understand what objectifying is post betrayal. I'm not so much triggered by other women. Is this common?
Hmm. That's actually very interesting that you say that because I even feel that, and maybe Debbie will have more information on this, but I actually even feel that way when I go to the gym. I'm like, kind of like when men look at me at the gym, I'm kind of like, why are they looking at me? And I start to feel like weird about it. But then again, I'm like, I've been in like baggy t-shirts and I feel like guys look at me. So like, I'm just like, I don't know. I think it maybe is common, and maybe Debbie has more information on that.
Well, you know, lots of things are normalized right now. And I think, being objectified as a female can happen anywhere. And it's unfortunate that I think females in general, who experience this and have this kind of trauma, may feel that they have to cover up so
Mhm.
that they are not objectified by somebody. Is it common? I don't know if it's common, but I would say that it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Next one here. Did your ex ever answer the question about why he chose to look at other women when he had you and he said you were more beautiful?
Yeah, so he would tell me, it was interesting because he would give me a few different answers. He would tell me that it was because he learned it from, so growing a little bit about his trauma, he would share with me that he was very young when he found porn because his dad was really mean to him, and that's kind of what led him to it. And he would tell me that it soothed him when he was going through stressful times growing up as a child. And so it was like he would tell me it's because of stress and like just his own, he would just say it's his own stuff, like it's his own way of soothing, I guess, the pain and like dealing with like trauma and things like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I will add as an addict that that's actually an honest answer. Sex addiction is not about sex. Pornography is not about porn. These are about self-soothing. Alcoholics don't drink because they like the taste of scotch. They drink because they want to get out of their head. And sex addicts and porn addicts are the same way. It's it it's not a judgment. It's not a referendum on the betrayed partner. But of course, betrayed partners often feel that it is. And why would you not? Debbie, did you have any thoughts on that? Or
No, I think that's exactly what I was thinking, the same thing.
yeah,
I mean, it's a disease of escape, right?
yeah,
And it is absolutely not about the alcohol, you know, the
right.
porn, the drugs. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm struggling with body image issues after extreme weight loss. I have problems with my reflection, pictures, dressing, and showering. I don't think my partner will ever appreciate my body as it is, especially if I can't, which is so hard with not only all the betrayal trauma and symptoms, but how do I look so aged and flat now from head to toe? And I'm only in my 30s. His type was young adults, always thin and with fuller feminine body features. I feel that it will be impossible for him to find me visually appealing ever again. I'm not getting any younger. It is important for me that my partner is visually attracted to me just as I am to him, without aesthetics, clothes, makeup, etc. Um, any advice?
What was the main question? I'm sorry, I kind of got.
The question is, and she's lost a bunch of weight.
Okay.
She's feeling unattractive, and she's worried that her partner is not visually attracted to her. as she currently is? Is there any advice?
I would say what could help with confidence is maybe, so for me, like what helps me with confidence is doing things that I love and enjoy doing, and not just focusing on like what I look like to feel better, but maybe that's like just speaking for myself, something that helps me feel confident is like if I'm helping a friend, or if I'm putting out something like this webinar, like doing this to help other people. So instead of just focusing on like, how can I look better to make me feel confident? What can I do? What value can I bring to someone else, or something I enjoy doing that will help me feel more of a confident person? That could be like going to the beach and just relaxing and just feeling that peace within, I think can help you feel more confident. That would be like things I would say you can do that aren't physical. Um, and like just with your body, I think you can just do the best that you can. Like for me, like I'm not gonna like I'm gonna try to do the best that I can with my body, eat healthy, take care of it, exercise, but I don't want to get into this extreme of like I'm exercising like 3 hours a day or something crazy like that. Like you don't want to get into this extreme where, just doing the best with what you have, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's sort of like step 12, right, Scott? Giving back.
Yeah.
And that's, is not focusing on yourself, but focusing on others. But I don't want to minimize that feeling either, is that I think it's a great example of that you've lost all this weight, and so you are thinner than you were, but your mindset is still the same. And so it's not the way you look, it's the way you feel. And you said that these women that he was attracted to were thin, but it's not about losing the weight so that he will be attracted to you. It's really about working on how you feel about you, and
Yeah,
how he feels about you is really about him.
that's good.
Yeah. We're going to get kicked out of here in about 3 minutes because there's another group after this one. So I'm going to take a quick second to thank Debbie for putting this together and Danielle for being with us. I will get this posted for everybody. Now I'll jump to our next question. This is an excellent webinar. Thank you. I'm compelled to add that there are also many men, gay men primarily, who have experienced betrayal trauma by their partners. It seems possible to find support for gay male partners. There are many of us out there, and I really appreciate Danielle's perspective. It is applicable to all of us who are betrayed. And I hope we can find more specific assistance through our trauma. Thank you all for hosting the seminar. You're very welcome. On Tuesday nights, I believe it is, John Bentley hosts a pro-dependence-oriented webinar, much like the one Debbie hosts, but he does it for male betrayed partners. So you may want to check that out. Okay. I have noticed that when I was separated from my husband, who is the addict, most of my triggers melted away. I wasn't affected by attractive women or even women in revealing clothes. Now that we have begun to reconcile, I feel that inadequacy again, and many of those triggers coming back. Why is this? Is it possible to rebuild my self-esteem so that I'm not triggered as much and to stay with my addict husband? I think he's in good recovery. Great question.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting question. I think maybe it goes to something that's just coming to my mind is maybe you haven't really worked through forgiving him. Like if you're gonna choose to stay with him, I think it's like a process of like working through forgiveness and like rebuilding trust. And I think as you forgive and you work towards reconciliation, because it sounds like that's what you want to do, if you're choosing to do that, forgiving him, working on that trust, and I think like hopefully him showing you, like we were saying earlier, what are some ways that he can help you work through that trauma by affirming you, and different things like that that can help rebuild that trust, if that makes sense.
I'll just say one thing, because I know we have to probably go in a second here. I think what stands out to me is what you said here. I think he is in good recovery. So I think what you know, I would say is to be firm that he is in good recovery and that he is giving you what you need to feel safe. And if he isn't, to be able to relay that to him what you need, because that may then bring down those triggers for you.
Let's keep going until we get booted.
Okay.
Did you ever want to make major changes to your body, surgery, etc.? Do you recommend against doing that for a while?